students. I am Shubhangi Rohatgi and your biology guide for today. And today we will study chapter 5, Morphology of Flowering Plants for class 11th NCERT. Now, do you know the meaning of morphology? This term stands for study of external features, study of external structures. Now, when we talk about the study of morphology, I have come across many a times to the students saying that they don't like the study of morphology or they find it boring and not interesting. So, I want to tell you about two things, that this study of external structure is very important. It forms the basis for higher studies in evolution and physiology and even in ecological adaptations. So, we cannot do away with it. We have to study the structure, then only we can proceed to the other higher branches of biology. And as far as boredom is concerned, I can assure you one thing, that in today's session I will try my level best to drive the boredom out of the class and see to it that you do not have to mug up the things. When you try to rote memorize the things, then the chapters become boring and not interesting. So, let us try to understand the logic behind the study of morphology. In this chapter, we will learn the standard definitions and standard technical terms. Now, again, these things are very important. When you try to classify successfully the living organisms, then you need to know the specific standard definitions and standard terms that are used for their description. We will also learn about the possible variations that are in different parts of the plants. These lead to the adaptations, as I told you earlier. Now, a plant has root, stem, leaves and flowers. So, in this chapter we will study about all these structures one by one. Let us begin with the root system. Now, root. If a young student comes to you and asks you, how will you define a root? What will you say? How will you help that young fellow? You might be tempted to say that roots are the structures that grow underground. The underground parts of the plant make up the root, but is this definition always correct? What about potato, turmeric, ginger, onion? You have been studying or hearing since junior classes that these are not roots, these are some other structures. So, we cannot safely say that all the structures that are present below the ground are root. One safe definition can be that root is that part of the plant that arises from the radicle of the embryo. Here you can see this is the plumule and this is the radicle. The root arises from the radicle of the embryo. Though it is not always the case, as we will see in the later course of the session, that some roots also arise from parts other than the radicle, but yet it is one correct definition that the part that arises from the radicle can be said as root. There are many different types of roots. Actually, when I was uprooting some weeds in my garden earlier someday, I noticed that the roots were of different kind in different plants. For example, here in this plant you can see that the root is fibrous, it is profusely branched and we cannot see any main root, and I could not help but notice that this plant is a monocot plant. While on the other hand, there were some other plants where we could see that roots were completely different. Here there was one main primary root and many lateral branches arising from this root, and you can see that the plant is dicot. By the way, this is carrot grass. So, we have ample points to differentiate between two kinds of roots. One is the tap root. Here this one that you just saw is the tap root and the other one is the fibrous root. Let us recall the points once again. In the tap root, the primary root is persistent and primary root bears many lateral roots, as you can see them here. They are mostly present in the dicots, for example carrot or carrot grass for that matter. On the other hand, if we talk about the fibrous roots, let us see them again. In the fibrous roots, the primary root is short lived and many roots arise from the base of the stem, and this kind of root is mostly present in the monocots, for example the grass. Now functions of the root system.